Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show. I got another prison-related news story that I want to share with you guys today. If you saw yesterday's video where I was talking about the entire Virginia parole board getting fired, all of the scandals and controversy that surrounded that, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to check out that video. If you haven't seen that video, I highly encourage you to check out the video that I posted yesterday, and I'll link that down below. Sharing prison-related news stories is something that I've done throughout the course of After Prison Show. I don't know why, starting with this one yesterday and probably this one here today, I've chose to do so more seriously. In the past, when I would share prison-related news stories, I would try to do so in a more comical way. And I don't know, I really enjoy trying to be funny, trying to entertain through the skits and the parodies. But I think that there's some things that really just don't call for a whole lot of jokes. When you're talking about prison, that's a pretty serious situation. Criminal justice, pretty serious situation. We're talking about people's lives. And not all the time should that constitute a need for humor. I don't want this to come across like this video is about to be boring. This video is not. This video is about to go in. I am enjoying the investigative reporting and sharing these stories with you guys as deep as I feel the rabbit hole really is. And today's story is another example of that. So I guess the short of it is, if you enjoyed yesterday's video, it's my hope that you'll enjoy this video as well. It was last week that I ran across this story with a headline that said local police, or something along the lines of local police were using a fake DNA test and results to get confessions out of people. And in fact, this headline right here that I'm about to share with you says, local police used fake DNA reports in bid to win confessions, state attorney general says. Had you heard about this story? The first thing that I ask. The story first broke last Wednesday, a little more than a week ago at this point, and it seemed to have been covered by a vast majority of news outlets. NPR, Complex, Vice, NBC News, all my local news was covering this. But even with that amount of coverage, I think USA Today as well, even with that amount of coverage, it just doesn't seem like it was that big of a damn story. And to me, and maybe to you as well hearing this, that's pretty crazy to think about. The police were using fake DNA results in an effort to get confessions. Now, just like with yesterday's story, I'm a little conflicted with this. We're going to break this thing down as deep as it possibly goes. And let's start first with a couple of interesting facts about this story. Again, local police used fake DNA reports in bid to win confessions, state attorney general says. Police in Virginia Beach, Virginia used fake DNA reports in an effort to get confessions, cooperation, or convictions, according to outgoing Attorney General Mark Herring. Folks, we just had a major election take place here in my state. Well, we had a major election take place across the country. The gubernatorial election, I believe, took place across the entire country in my state. It was Republican Glenn Youngkin replacing Democrat Ralph Northam, who I do want to say, I don't really have a lot of qualms about Ralph Northam. I got my rights restored because of Ralph Northam. Ralph Northam did a fair amount of, he did quite a bit in relation to criminal justice reform. And I appreciate that. I truly do appreciate that. I hope that Glenn Youngkin is able to continue making the proper changes that need to be made in the criminal justice system. But along with our gubernatorial race was the attorney general's race as well. Our former attorney general, Mark Herring, just narrowly got beaten. He was a Democrat, just narrowly got beaten by another Republican, Jason. Oh, God, his last name is going to mess me up. Mares. I'm probably butchering that, and I apologize. I wish I could have got, you know what? Can I get Google Translate on this joint real quick? Jason Mares. Yeah, Google don't even know what the fuck I'm saying. Also, footnote, another interesting thing to mention about this new Attorney General, Jason Mares. I'm just going to call him the new Attorney General. That way I can stop butchering his name. Interesting thing to mention about this guy during his campaigning to try to become the next Attorney General. He was big on that parole situation as well, wanting to break up that parole board and make quite a few changes. And while we're on the topic of this guy in particular, let me just go ahead and share this that I found while investigating this fake DNA results story. New Attorney General Jason Miyares plans to be new sheriff in town as Virginia Attorney General. And I hate to say this, but if you're locked up or if you're getting in trouble, hey, let this joint scare you straight what I'm getting ready to share with you, because this dude, he's about change coming down the pike. And he about to flip a lot of shit upside down on its head. Virginia's new Attorney General, Jason S. Miyares, has already launched a probe of a state parole board he feels failed crime victims. He's fired several employees, including a unit that investigates wrongful convictions. That's crazy to note. And has blasted liberal prosecutors who seek lighter sentences. If you're out there up to no good, I highly suggest you calm your ass down, because this new Attorney General, he's not going for it, it doesn't seem like. So I wanted to share that with you guys first and foremost. You know, if you think about the way that things have changed, and my God, have they changed, especially in relation to when I was getting in trouble versus how things seem to be now. You know, I think back, I was put on probation initially for a grand larceny charge, breaking into unlocked cars. I received 3 years of probation for that. But while on probation, if I would have received a dirty urine for marijuana or anything worse, I was getting locked up for that. That was a technical violation. I could have got locked up for that and faced up to 3 years in prison because of that. Now, would I have gotten that? It depends. If it had been my third violation, I most certainly could have received that amount of time. But even on a first violation, the way that it seemed, my opinion, but I went through this, so I've got some experience with this. As a first violation, no matter whether it was a technical or you brought back charges, they was giving you some sort of a percentage of whatever you had over your head. Let's say I had 3 years over my head like I did. First violation could have been a technical violation. I could have received 6 months for that. Where it seemed more so as of late up until now, because it does seem change is about to be imminent. You know, programs, put them back out on the streets for whatever reason. Look, we want to be more lenient toward addiction and that type of thing. And maybe with this new guy, I can't read his mind. I got no idea what he's saying, but he's blasting liberal prosecutors for the lighter sentences. With this new Attorney General, are we about to get tough on crime again, even crimes in relation to addiction? I just posed that as a little food for thought. But I got off course a little bit, but don't worry, we're going to circle the wagons and I'm going to get back to why I'm sharing all of this Attorney General stuff with you guys. If we go back to this first story, where I hate to keep reading this headline, but it's so important. Local police used fake DNA reports in bid to win confessions, state attorney general says. The first paragraph of this story says, according to outgoing Virginia Attorney General Mark Herring. Now, let's go even further. The police department used the fake reports in at least 5 instances between March 2016 and February 2020, according to a press release by outgoing Attorney General Mark Herring. Herring's Office of Civil Rights had investigated after an assistant Commonwealth attorney sought a certified copy of what turned out to be a fake report from the state's forensic science agency in April of 2021. We're talking about last year now. This is not even midway through last year. The forged documents generally claimed that a suspect's DNA was found in connection with the crime. The fake reports purported to come from the Virginia Department of Forensic Science. This is huge. They were creating fake reports with fake seals of approval coming from the Virginia Department of Forensic Science. Can you imagine going through an interrogation? And this is why this story is so crazy, because what if you were innocent? I think a perfect example that comes to mind is Darnell Phillips. Darnell Phillips served 26 or 28 years in prison for a bad type of charge that he didn't do. Now, they didn't have DNA when he first got locked up, and his, DNA would eventually be the reason that he got released because it was not his DNA. But think about an innocent person. You didn't commit a crime, but the police are dead set on the fact that you did this. They go get a fake DNA test. Yo, hey, John Boy, this is you right here. We got your DNA on this. You look at this, and what goes through your mind at that point? You've watched these shows on Netflix, these shows about dirty cop tactics and, interrogating people for 17 hours or longer than that, like almost waterboarding an individual to get a confession out of them. Here in my state locally, Virginia Beach, 450,000 people, they were using fake DNA results tests to get a confession. Can you imagine looking at this joint coming from the Virginia Department of Forensic Science? It's got you on it. You might start questioning whether or not you did that or not. Or you might think to yourself, there's no way. They're set on the fact that I did this, and there's no way I'm getting out of this. Should I cooperate? Should I just say that I did something that I didn't do? Maybe they'll have mercy on me in court. Like at this point, you got a DNA results test saying I did something that I know I did not do. You the police. You the Department of Virginia Forensic Science. That's why I feel this story is so crazy. They mentioned 5 cases. Could there be more? There probably is. Let's be honest. I remember back in 2008 when I was getting arrested, I was up to no good at all. I deserved to get arrested. I had drugs. I had a gun. It was not a stolen gun. Thank God. I was a nonviolent offender. Thank God as well. And I get pulled over for speeding and they find everything on me. I'm going to jail. But I sent the girl who was with me to the hospital trying to, when they pulled me over saying, hey, look, this girl, she's having a miscarriage. She's having stomach pains. You got to call an ambulance. Get her out of here. Thinking, it was such a crazy situation. Everything was happening so fast. I'm thinking that I put the drug, like I gave her the drugs to go to the hospital with. I was scum of the earth. I wasn't worth anything. I'm embarrassed to share that. Even though I took the rap for everything once the cat was out of the bag completely. Here I am, caught, still trying to get out of this situation, putting what I thought were the drugs on this chick to take to the hospital. I put some fake mushrooms on her, or not put them on her, but I gave them to her and said, please take these to this hospital I'm trying to get you sent to. Once they found the cocaine on me, because again, everything happened so fast, I thought I gave that to her, but I did not. We were going to the hospital. We all drove like a little convoy, me in the back of this police car to go see what this girl had on her. They found those fake mushrooms. At this point, I had like put my hands from behind my back, under my legs, and in front of me with the handcuffs on. So they took me out of the cop car in the hospital parking lot to put the handcuffs on, back on behind my back. During that time, because I'm bucking, hitting my head on the plexiglass, they're like, we're going to search the back of the cop car and see if you dropped anything. Now, mind you, I had powder cocaine, fake mushrooms, and a pistol that was registered to that girl. It was a legal firearm of hers. They pull me out of the cop car. They pull the back seat out of the cop car, and they bring out a little cigarette cellophane, little plastic baggie. And they start shaking it. It's dark outside. Oh, look at what we found here. Look at what we found here. You're really screwed now. I was already screwed. These cops, they were dirty, held up a cigarette cellophane with crack cocaine. A lot of crack cocaine, little crack cocaine rocks in this baggie. That would have enhanced the severe charges that I was already facing. Ironically enough, after I confessed saying I did all of this, I went to X-Nay to buy these drugs, and I was going back to where I was going back to sell these drugs. Once I served myself up on a silver platter, ironically, there was never any mention of that crack anymore. So I know, personally, that cops can be dirty. Not all cops are dirty. I don't want this video to be shared. I'm not sharing this story with you to say, see, all cops are bad. Not all cops are bad. There's bad apples in the bunch. There's people who will do anything to try. It's just all facets of life. Whatever job you have, there's bad people at your job. People that you can't stand, people that would do anything to benefit themselves at the expense of anybody else. I support law enforcement, as ironic as that is to say. I know that there's been terrible shit involved with law enforcement, unjustified shootings and black folks losing their lives. It's been crazy with law enforcement, but I still support them. I still know that they're there to do a job. They take that job knowing how dangerous that job is, knowing how crazy that job can be. So I share that. First and foremost, I want to make that emphatically clear that this is not to diminish law enforcement as a whole. I'm simply sharing this particular story about this particular situation, and it's deeper, in my opinion, than just the law enforcement itself who was involved in using these fake DNA tests. And let's continue with that. Let's go down this rabbit hole. As the story would continue, I want to make sure I share this correctly and there's no misinformation with this. Let me say this. On January 11th, they don't mention 2021, so I'm guessing we're talking about the day before this story broke, which would be January the 12th, where I would see it. The Virginia Beach City Council agreed to a coalition agreement with the Attorney General's office that requires an end to the practice and police training against the use of forged documents. Police training? You're training police to use forged documents? Is it by any means necessary you get that conviction? Because that sounds crazy. Maybe you're just wording it that way, saying if you are training law enforcement to do this, you need to stop. But the part of this that I find really interesting is this. They said the police department had cooperated in the state investigation and had banned the use of fake documents in May of 2021, excuse me. So the police department cooperated with this Attorney General's investigation, found it to be legit. They was definitely using fake documents. Hey, you need to stop that. They agreed to stop that back in May of 2021. Now, mind you, let me go to this next part. Here's my conspiracy theory on this. Again, for the 12th time, the headline of this story says, State Attorney General says. And then the first paragraph, outgoing Virginia Attorney General Mark Herring. There was just this huge election, governors and attorney generals and all sorts of really important political offices, right? How come there was never any mention of this during that time, during this election, right? You got to know this was taking place during the election, well before the election. This little scandalous situation was taking place. There could have been a major black eye to then Attorney General Mark Herring, right? Can you imagine if Jason Morat, the new Attorney General, would have known about this information? Yo, hey, vote for me, because this dude, hey, under his watch, they using fake DNA test results to get convictions. Do you watch Netflix? Have you seen those shows? Forgive me for trying to add a little bit of humor to that, but there's not, this is a very serious matter. I just find it ironic. The point that I'm trying to make is that this story breaks. I mean, shit, Mark Herring, he lost the election. He was already going out. Well, you might as well go ahead and just announce what was taking place back in 2021 before this new attorney general comes in and sees this shit on his desk. Like, hey, press conference. Yo, hey, by the way, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to get tough on crime again. I'm firing everybody. Oh, and by the way, this Mark Herring, you know what he had going on? And he knew about it and he ain't share it with you. So, share it on your way out. Leave that shitstorm for the next guy, right? So to speak. I mean, I'm glad that Virginia Beach has said, hey, look, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna use these fake DNA tests anymore. But like I said, conflicted on this and why. Oh, and real quick, I got to share this before I get to that. At the end of this story, they mentioned something that I find pretty interesting. They said, unfortunately, courts, including in Virginia, have held that falsehoods by police in obtaining an alleged confession, even the use of forged documents, does not necessarily invalidate a confession. Think about that. Let's say you got convicted because you were one of these cases where they use these forged and fake DNA results tests to get a conviction. You're locked up right now in prison seeing this story like, yo, I got an appeal now. I can appeal my situation because this story has come out. And that last paragraph says, unfortunately, courts, including in Virginia, have held that falsehoods by police in obtaining an alleged confession, even the use of forged documents, does not necessarily invalidate a confession. How don't it, though? They would continue. Such ploys are just a factor to be considered in whether a confession was voluntary. Boy, they got a loophole for their own loophole. Such ploys are just a factor to be considered. If they've got a DNA results test saying you the father, or whatever it's saying, your DNA matches the DNA found at this crime scene, and that joint's got the seal of approval from the Virginia Department of Forensic Science, and all those thoughts are going through your head, I can't win, I can't beat these folks. They got me dead to rights. And I didn't even do this. If I just confess, maybe they'll show some mercy on me in the courtroom. Here's your DNA right here, John Boy. What's it going to be? Yeah, all right. I did it. They're going to have that taped. They're going to have that. You're going to sign that confession. They're going to have that transcribed. Boy, hey, man, they're going to have 3 different copies of that shit. The video, the audio, the text. And you're going to sign that. And because you've signed that, I'm guessing that's probably going to be how they say, well, you signed it, so it had to be voluntary, right? This story would wrap up with one final sentence that I feel is just wild. They say, reprehensible does not equal unconstitutional. I was perplexed by that last sentence right there. Like, what are they talking about? Reprehensible does not equal unconstitutional? Reprehensible meaning. Well, Google's acting funny. I think they launched 5G today or some shit, so my phone's all to pieces. But yeah, I looked it up. It just means frowned upon, basically. Just because it's frowned upon doesn't make it unconstitutional. How about that? Now, to get to the final thought that I want to share in relation to this story. Look, like I said, I was conflicted on this. Because just as you were guaranteed to have people who were innocent, who probably got jammed up in a way that can't be undone, because just because they used this ploy doesn't mean that the confession wasn't involuntary if you signed that confession. The flip side of that coin is, what if you got a person that you know did something? You know he did something, but all your evidence is hearsay, circumstantial. You don't have anything concrete. How do you know he did it if all of your evidence is circumstantial and not concrete? That's a pretty interesting point to share right there. There's a story that's taking place in Northern Virginia, so to speak, Northumberland County, I believe. Let me pull up this story. Did I share this story with myself already? I was made aware of this story yesterday by an awesome supporter of After Prison Show by the name of Brian. Brian, very special shout out to you. Not Brian number 1 through 9 or 11. Just a good person who rocks with After Prison Show. So thank you for making me aware of this story. But this is a whole nother can of worms right here. Sheriff's Office, body matching description of missing Northumberland County woman found. Such a tragic situation involving this 28-year-old woman right here. She was working at a gas station. She was taking the trash out. They got it on surveillance footage. They don't mention too much else about what they got on surveillance footage, but they've arrested a guy. 50-year-old Tyrone Samuel of Heathville was charged with abduction of Smith on Saturday. They charged this guy before they would find her body, and unfortunately they would find her body. They had a search team of over 50 people out there. They had rewards that were offered for information in relation to where this missing girl went to. And they would find her body, unfortunately, in a well. They had already arrested this guy, so that tells me they got this dude on surveillance camera at the very least, probably taking this young lady away. I hope, oh God, I hope the worst for this dude. I truly do, right? But in a situation like this, let's just say hypothetically, all you got is whatever you have on the surveillance footage. Witness accounts as well, I think, play into this story. Don't quote me on this. I've only briefly began looking into the story. There's a reason why I'm looking into the story, because allegedly this guy was just released, possibly because of COVID. So there could be more on this story coming here on After Prison Show. But for the time being, I use this story as an example, and it might not be the greatest thing to do, but just hear me out. They've got this guy on surveillance camera, maybe talking to this young woman, walking away with this young woman, maybe worse with this young woman. He was last seen with this young woman. Maybe that's as far as they've got. Maybe they've got more. I honestly don't know. They haven't released any more details in relation to evidence against this dude. But in a case like this, let's just say hypothetically all they have is the video evidence. You know this guy did it. Maybe he's got a criminal record that makes him a likely candidate. Would it be justified in a case like this to use a fake DNA results test to try to get a confession? I don't necessarily feel like, as I share that with you guys, I don't necessarily feel like even in that situation it's the right thing to do, because, you know, devil's advocate, maybe he's not the guy, right? You don't know unless you really know. You need some concrete evidence to know. So as much as I say like I'm conflicted, it's that whole thinking that you know. It's gotta be him. He was the last guy, which probably has led to so many innocent people being locked up just because you think you know. It's gotta be that person. Let's get this fake DNA test results. That way we can get a confession out of this guy. And like I said, I'm not saying one way or another in that case right there of that poor young woman whose body was just found, whether this guy is the killer or not. They got him locked up and charged with this, so they probably have some evidence on this dude. And if he is the guy that did this, like I said, I hope he gets everything that's coming to him. But I just used that as an example. I'm going to wrap this video up with that. A lot of moving parts to this story right here. I really want to know what you guys think about all of this. So leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed this video. And as always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world. Never take a moment for granted and make the most of every day. Peace!